Hi, my name is Andrew Dinspetchen. I'm the creative director at Hydrometry Software.
Hi, I'm Emmy Tester, and I'm one of the artists on the team, and I'm mainly doing texture work and UI element stuff.
Okay, so today we're just going to talk about some of the early art that we had for the game and some of the concept work that we did and show off some of the enemies, some of the gameplay elements and stuff like that. So here we have the first logo. So back when the team only had 3 people, which come to think of it, wasn't very long ago, I worked on this in Illustrator. It was a pretty basic design for the game. You know, really just wanted something, and I didn't really have an idea of what I was doing. And since then, I've kind of learned a bit more about graphic design, but not much to say about this one, to be honest with you.
So for this one, I wanted like a sort of futuristic font, so I mocked this one up, and I liked how it looked, but it didn't really say anything like about the game. So for the next one, I put a star in the background, but it looked a lot like the Amazon logo, so we scrapped that. And the next slide, I wanted to, in the background was like Spatoo's screen, but again, it didn't really say anything about the game. It was just text on a rectangle.
This last one here, this was done by Sarah, who is the concept artist on the team. So she put this together. This was based on both the logos for Nemesis, which is an old arcade game, as well as Super C. Not sure if that was in the arcade, not important. And you can see the kind of influence of Nemesis in the orange text and the Super C influence in the background. So we really liked how Super C had the super in front and the C behind the text. So we tried to emulate something like that with this one. Although this one also still doesn't say much about the actual gameplay of the game. And that's a really good design tip is your logo should say something about your product, no matter what it is. And so what we're planning to do is put some stars and possibly even include Spatoo, our main character, right inside this graphic. So this was one of the first sort of developmental progress images that was compiled by Damien. Damien is the 3D modeler on the team. And you can see on the top left, we have some drawings. These are done in Tabletop Simulator, and we'll talk about that later. You can see right here, actually, there's on the top left, we have this sort of triangle and then this sort of delta type thing here. We were going for something that was asteroids inspired. And you can kind of see the evolution of that and then the translation of it into a 3D model. Although we ended up completely scrapping everything that you see here because this thing just straight up looked like a chicken. And the rest of the designs just didn't make sense gameplay wise.
Yeah, so for this one, we wanted to put a star on its design because we had this sort of idea of shooting star. So we gave it a faceplate, and it looked a bit empty, so we put on a visor as well, like a screen that could show almost like Doom Guy's face in the corner. Yeah, for the top view, the guns are on the wings because we couldn't figure out where to put them for the longest time, like on the top or the bottom, like in the middle. And the wings being pointed like that made it look like it would move faster, like as opposed to like just like the main hull part. The main body was like quite big and
hmm
looked.
I was a little bit annoying for a while, and I was like really not into the idea of putting wings on it because I'm like, oh, it's a spaceship, it doesn't need them. Pro tip: realism is not a justification for gameplay elements. That's why video games exist. So don't do what I did.
Yeah. So for this one, it's like before we had decided on an aesthetic for the game. So I'd given Spatoo like a sort of almost mech inspired like paint job, and the middle part kind of looked like a bee, and I don't know. We eventually just like steered away from like realistic like grungy sort of paint jobs on spaceships. Just slapped a few colors on really, and it looked alright, but it didn't really have a sort of heroic look to it. Because like we still wanted like the cuteness of the character. So for the next one, we were like just kind of in limbo for a while, not knowing what colors to put on it. But the orange rim we really liked. So again, on the next one, we ended up placing all of the dark blue with like dark yellow and orange.
The bright colors make them kind of pop a bit more. You can imagine if you're flying through some purple or blue nebula. The dark sort of drab blue color that we had before wasn't really going to pop well against the background. This next picture is the cargo ship. So the cargo ship is actually part of the shipping company mission type. In that mission type, basically you're supposed to escort this thing across an asteroid field, but it draws power from you. And in doing so, takes your shields away, and enemies are trying to crash into it the whole time and damage it and stuff. You have to get it across before it gets destroyed and kill the enemies and all that stuff. And once again, you can see the tabletop simulator screenshots that are just sort of put in here. You can kind of tell at what stage in development we were. This next image here is a picture of probably the earliest designs of the game, and so is this next one, but we'll get to that. So we have these different enemy types: the fodder, the chaser, screecher, defender, tank, and then off-screen Lith is the final boss of the game. Another pro tip for you, whenever you're designing a character, think specifically how that character is going to look in game. And that is something that I clearly didn't do here, because if you imagine these things in game, well, it's those eyes that are on them, you're not going to be able to see them. That's almost on top of the ship. And if you judge by where the thrusters actually are, it really didn't make a lot of sense. These designs, although some of them were modeled, they eventually just got completely scrapped. But they were a start for us, and you can see kind of the influence and inspiration of them. This is also just that full picture. Very low res. Sorry about that. So this is the Chaser. So this is a model that I made, and this is before Damien, again, the 3D modeler, was on our team. Um, and it kind of became this. Do you want to talk about this version of it?
So in the background is Sarah's concept art, and it has this fox look about it, which we really liked. Like it looks cunning and it fits like the actual behavior of the enemy, like where it's fast and tries to get behind you and shoot. If you go to the next one, the eyes are glowing, so it's like this is what it would sort of look like in game at a distance. For the next one, I had this genius idea of when it goes behind you, it opens up and reveals like a big cannon inside. But since it doesn't move while it's firing, but it also leaves itself open, like vulnerable to attack. So you can do big damage, like if you manage to shoot inside the thing.
This one was the fodder. Can you take a wild guess who did this model? It was me. That's why it looks like shit. Moving on. This was the second design of the fodder, which you could tell is obviously a lot better. Didn't really end up in the final. I think there was something about the mouth, right, Emmy, that we didn't like. There was a couple things with this,
Yeah.
right? They were, yeah, we're not fond of. But you can see that those triangular eyes that we had in the original design are actually still present. And we actually decided to start using that as a motif for the characters and show off those eyes as a way of telling the player about how strong something is. So in this case, this is a fodder, and as you can probably tell from the name, it's the weakest enemy in the game. And so it only has these two little pair of triangles here. It doesn't look very strong. It almost looks like it's crying. I mean, this thing is just the definition of weakling. So there's this image here, which is actually several drawings of the different eyes that we're going to use for each of the different enemy types to kind of basically demonstrate before the player even knows what they do about how strong they are. So if you go to the top, you see the defender. It's got these three pairs of eyes. You're like, okay, well that can't be that strong. And then the elite defender is the same thing, but they have this sort of cut out of the top of them. The tank has these sort of wide, really intimidating looking eyes, and then the shadow chaser is just an upgraded version of the chaser, which is a bit more cunning looking. And then Lith, the final boss, which just looks like borderline stained glass. So you can kind of see where we were going with that. This picture here is the defender. Once again, model done by me. Um, Not gonna lie, one of the better models that I did actually kind of looked like the original drawing I had, but still pretty bad. So, whoops. And here is the much better early concept art for the Defender. And you can see, if I go back to this slide, if you look on the very top, we have those three pairs of eyes. Well, they came through right on this thing. And we're going to see this guy in the game approximately looking something like this. So the Defender is one step up from the fodder. They're a little bit stronger. They take a couple more hits, and they actually have shields. So you're going to have to break through their shields, which if you're not fast enough killing them, they're going to regenerate. So these guys are just going to try and come up to you and shoot you just the same way as the fodders are, but they come in smaller packs. They're a little stronger, that type of thing. This one is the Screecher, and I believe Emmy did some modeling work for this one as well. Um, you wear a lot of hats, Emmy, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do music as well.
Yeah. We, I think we all, with such a small team, we all kind of wear more hats than we're supposed to.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's to the point where everyone has one role on on our Discord server except Emmy, who has two. So, um, yeah. So this first image, I might actually want to explain what the Screecher is. So the Screecher is a direct inspiration from Minecraft's Creeper. The thing runs at you, or in this case, it flies at you, and it blows up. And if you are missing any shields, you're more than likely going to die. So they're going to do a lot of damage to you, and there is a way to combat them by basically EMPing them or hacking them and sending them back flying at their cohorts.
So for this one, we really wanted to get across the fact that this thing would blow up if it gets close. So we wanted it to look intimidating and more like a projectile than an enemy. So we made it round like a bomb and gave it these fins on the back, like to make it look more aerodynamic, even though it's in space somehow. Again, but like what you said earlier about design over realism,
Hmm. You
like
can't use realism as a reason to explain your video game
yeah,
concept
because
because video
then we
games
would
are meant
just
to be fun.
have
So
we would just have floating bombs at that point.
yeah, it'd be stupid. And actually, something you employed in this design as well is you put the one eye on it, which no other design has, and it implies that these things are like expendable. You know, they have
Yeah.
this. Yeah, you can go into that if you want. Actually, I'll just
Ah,
do it because I think I started. So,
bitch.
moving on, we have the Assimilator. So this guy is essentially a healer in a way. What he's going to do is he's going to provide shields to enemies that are flying close to him. And then when he gets close to you, he's actually going to steal your shield. It doesn't have a lot of health, but that's if you're able to get through all of its shields. And in this picture here, you can actually see there were some of the original drawings, and there were some of the original designs that just really were not working out for us. Gameplay wise, really, how was this thing going to look flying at you? I mean, was it gonna fly at you sideways? Like, it's not. It doesn't really work. Completely scrap that design, actually. Do you want to talk about like Sarah's design here?
Yeah. So because this thing has like a zapping attack to take your shields away, we wanted to get across in its design that well, it would zap you. So its wings are like lightning bolts almost. Like oh, don't get close, you'll get zapped.
Right, and
And
it's like literally we do so much with that in this next one. Like,
yeah,
we told Sarah this, and she went insane and just put like lightning bolts all over this thing.
you can over design your characters, like and it can work
Yeah.
like intimidation.
Yeah, I mean, look at this thing, and you'll notice the eyes. They're originally pointing down. They had this sort of almost sad look to them, but when you move over to the second one, they look angry, and you can tell like this thing almost looks like a spider. I mean, it looks like it's going to really hurt you if it gets close to you, so you know to avoid it if you can manage. So this one's the tank. It's basically a unit. It is very big compared to the player, as are most of the enemies actually. Kind of had this underdog idea going on. But this tank is very, very big. It has this one missile cannon on top, which it's obviously shooting homing missiles out of. And basically this thing is going to have a lot of health. It's going to have this a patrol of what we're calling elite defenders around it, which are just stronger versions of the defender enemies. But it's going to have like a sort of an armada around it. And so taking these guys out is going to be a pretty big thing. But when they die, they explode and they do a lot of damage to whatever's around them. So sometimes you might be able to get away with just killing the tank and dealing with the defenders that way. This is honestly one of the first designs that we had, and the eyes came across as being on top of the thing, which at first we wanted to avoid, but it actually ended up working out really well here. So this one's Lith. You can actually see this is the final boss. This thing is meant to be exceptionally powerful. You know, it has this mouth that when it opens, it's going to expel tanks and it's going to expel fodders and all these different enemy types at you, and you're going to have to kind of deal with them as you're fighting it. And a lot of the difficulty is going to be coming from the ability to control the crowd while you're fighting this thing. And you can actually see, not gonna lie, this one was inspired by biblically accurate angels, according to Sarah. And it, in a way, is the exact foil to Spatoo. Spatoo is really small. This thing is massive, and it has this giant laser that it just beams out and can sweep across the entire sort of sector with. And you get caught in that blast, you're gonna die pretty much instantly. So why is it the antithesis to Spatoo other than the size? Well, if you look at it, it actually kind of looks like a star, only it has more. It has one extra point, um, which sort of almost gives it this like unfamiliar look to it. You get used to the five-pointed star that's on the front of Spatoo, and then there's this thing with a six-pointed star, and it's just like, oh god, like that thing looks really different. Um, and we can tell that that thing's not friendly. It's covered in the eyes. You know how strong it.
Yeah. Also, like to point out the Ving in the background of the one on the left. Like I really like that. Like it definitely makes it look like a leader, almost like a holy sort of leader.
Hmm. Really. And the idea here, if you couldn't tell, right, is if you look at the first design and the bottom star, it looks like it's actually four-pointed, but this front part will open up with two legs, and then it'll also reveal the third point of the star. So it'll have like this another 3 points coming off of it.
So this was like the very first mock-up we had for like the UI and the gameplay. I'm laughing because of the face in the corner. It's like it was like vaguely based off Chicken Spatoo,
Hmm.
and I can't take that thing seriously anymore.
Right.
But did have like the sort of triangle look to it, like in the middle, and we were originally going to go with blue lasers, and like all the color choices were like sort of inspired by Biscuit Rain too. And
Hmm.
you can see in the corner like it's really like clean looking objective like meter, which I really liked. If we go to the next one, which is more modern now, I kept the same font, which I don't know if we have the rights for that. It's just concept art, but we're
Yeah.
gonna go with a different one anyway.
Yeah, we're totally
But
doing that.
so I made a bit of an adjustment to the progress bar on the objective. We haven't decided on where to put the points yet, but you can see Spatoo's new face in the corner and like an enemy exploding with a big number coming off for the points. And sort of interesting idea I just came up with on the spot of enemies coming out of a portal,
And it's
almost like
funny
from
because
like a
that's
different dimension.
that's literally going to be going into the final design. Like it was just it was an accident of the production of this piece of concept art, and now
Yeah,
that's something that we're going to be doing. Because the alternative, right, is we could just have them into existence, but that's stupid. So, they had to come
yeah,
from somewhere.
yeah. So that displays like say if enemies are spawning, Spatoo's face could look determined or like almost angry, and then when they're all killed, it would look relaxed again. Or if you're just doing like an asteroid mission, it won't like face won't change much, but sometimes it could like display the scar on the screen, like on Spatoo's visor. It kind of adds a bit of like more personality to it.
When you're shooting, he'll look a little bit angrier, and then when you get hit, he'll have like those white eyes that are just like ow, like
Yeah,
something like that. It's reflective of what's going on in the game. I believe that's it. Do you want to mention the
but
tabletop
before
simulator thing?
oh yeah, I was just about to mention. Yeah, so for a while we couldn't decide on like what to use to like as like a whiteboard between us all that we could all use. We found this one website, but it was really laggy, and we tried OneNote, but not all of us could access it at the same time. And tabletop seemed to be like the only option we had.
Because we all remembered like, oh shit, wait a minute, we used to play D&D in tabletop. Like a bunch of us used to
Yeah,
do that. So
we used to draw like absurd things on. We drew a lot of dicks on the
yeah.
edge of the board instead of
Yes.
playing D&D.
Yeah, which was, I mean, fantastic, of course. Anyway, thank you for watching this second devlog. Next time we'll probably talk about some of the more programming aspects of the game, or just another general one, and go over some of the new features and kind of tell you guys about what it is that we're doing. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, bye.